Good evening, everybody. I'd like to call to order tonight. We have alternates John Erblin. This evening, we've got a public hearing for 50 to 58 Rainbow Road, LLC, for road construction at 2 warehouse buildings and associated with site improvements in the upland review area, and 2 access crossings. And then for the minutes of June 4th, make a motion to adjust that, the dates on those.
Let's not do that yet. Let's go to the public hearing before we get to the minutes portion. Yeah, and just to introduce myself for everybody here, I'm attorney Scott Lingenfelter. I'm the town attorney. Before we open the public hearing, I just kind of wanted to quickly give a recap of what we're here for. The public hearing is an opportunity for the public to hear the application and to make comments for the commission to consider regarding the application. As this is a Inland Wetland Watercourse Commission, those comments do need to be limited to inland wetland watercourse issues. So the public wants to make comments regarding the building size or the use of the building or lighting or roadways or something like that. That's not appropriate for this process tonight. There will be an opportunity for that, assuming this moves forward to zoning and planning, where they can make comments regarding those issues at zoning and planning. But here we do want to make sure it stays limited to wetlands issues only. Once public hearing's open, the applicant will have a chance to present their application to the commission. Commission can ask questions of the applicant, and then we'll open it up for public dialogue. The commission can decide how to do that. Usually you ask for comments in favor first, then comments in opposition, and then just neutral comments, and then the applicant usually has the last chance to respond afterwards. Comments should be limited to no more than 3 minutes each. Obviously, the commission has some discretion to allow more, but we want to keep things moving forward.
Okay. So now we're back to the minutes for June 4th.
No, we want to open public hearing now. Yeah, but these are next is the public hearing.
Okay, we're open the public hearing.
Yeah, second.
Second it. Any motion?
Aye.
You in favor? Aye. Yeah.
All right, read the legal notice and then turn it over to the applicant.
All right, I'm going to read the legal notice that was advertised in the newspaper for the public hearing. Legal notice, Town of East Granby Inland Wetland Commission, Conservation Commission. The East Granby Inland Wetland Conservation Commission will be held public hearing on Wednesday, July 2nd, 2025 at 7 p.m. at the East Granby Town Hall, 9 Center Street, East Granby, Connecticut, 06026, in the Town Hall Meeting Room. CC number is 25-04, SL 5058 Rainbow Road, LLCs, to 5058 Rainbow Road construction of 2 warehouse buildings associated with the site improvements in the upland review areas, and to access 2 roadways crossings on map 17, lot number 11. This application is on file and may be seen online on the town hall website in the offices of the building department. Dated East Granby, Connecticut, on the 17th day of June 2025. And that'll be the legal notice. We'll turn it over.
Good evening, members of the commission. My name is Evan Seaman. I'm a lawyer at Robinson & Cole in Hartford, and I'm here this evening on behalf of the applicant, SL 50-58 Rainbow Road, LLC. And I just wanted to introduce the team members that we have joining us this evening. First, on behalf of the applicant is Holden Sabato. On behalf of BL Companies, which is the civil engineer for this project, is Tim Hool. And JMM Wetland Consulting Services, we have Tiana Perini. Now, this is an application for a permit seeking to conduct regulated activities at 50-58 Rainbow Road. The total size of the property is just over 130 acres. The project involves 2 industrial buildings, parking, 2 access drives, and related site improvements. Now, there are wetlands and a watercourse on the property, primarily along the western and eastern portions of the 130-acre site. And as part of our project plans, which you'll see in just a moment, we will review that with you. Now, I did want to emphasize that there really is minimal impact, and you'll hear this throughout our presentation, minimal impact to wetlands and wetlands resources as part of this proposed project. The site, again, is about 130 acres, and the design team has taken care to ensure that impacts to wetlands and wetlands resources are either avoided entirely or minimized to the maximum extent possible. So of the 130 acre site, the percent of that site that will experience direct impact to wetlands is only 0.22%. So a very, very small fraction of this property is going to experience direct impact to wetlands. There is some activity also proposed in the upland review area, and out of the percentage of that work in comparison to the overall site is only 2%. So again, we're talking about really small numbers here. Now, I think the commission also recognized this when it received the application. There were some comments that, there really aren't a lot of impacts here, and the commission, although there is a public hearing this evening, the commission isn't holding a public hearing because of the possibility of a significant impact. That wasn't something that was found by the commission on June 4th. Rather, there's a public hearing being held out of public interest. There are three different reasons that this commission, you all can hold a public hearing, and that's the reason that there is a public hearing this evening. And one other point I wanted to mention, there is also an enhancement plan that's proposed as part of this application. So while there are going to be about 0.29 acres that are directly impacted by the proposal, there's actually going to be 0.31 acres that of the overall site that will experience enhancement plantings in the wetlands and resource areas, or inland wetlands areas. And just to reiterate the town attorney's comments too, obviously this is a public hearing and members of the public are entitled to speak. But this agency's jurisdiction is quite limited. It's limited to inland wetlands issues. So to the extent that there are comments about the use, whether folks like or don't like the use, traffic or zoning issues, unfortunately, those issues aren't within the purview of this agency. What is within the purview of this agency, though, is what are going to be the impacts to the wetlands? And I think you'll hear throughout this presentation that there really aren't going to be many impacts to those wetlands resources. With that, I'd like to now turn it over to Tim Hool of BL Companies to present our civil engineering site plans for the agency.
I just want to note for the record that Jennifer Frank, who is a member of the commission, joined at 7:10 p.m., so she is also in attendance via Zoom.
Who is keeping the record tonight since we don't have?
We're recording it, and so the recording secretary will be transcribing the notes from. It's also on community television as well.
Good evening. My name is Tim Hool, civil engineer of record from BL Companies. First, before I start, I do have some half-size copies of the color plan that I'm going to present from to pass out. Just make it easier for the commissioners if you all would like one.
Yeah.
You like as well?
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
Excuse me, since this is a public hearing, is it possible that we could see the screen on the projector or some form of information for the audience as well?
I can share this so that it'll be up on that.
So just to confirm, the paper plan I handed out is just a paper copy of this color plan that's going to be coming up on the screen momentarily. So,
Yep, so.
okay. Very good. So Evan did give a brief overview of the project of the site, but I do want to touch on some of the more engineering specific details. Starting with the existing conditions, as mentioned, the site is identified as 50 to 58 Rainbow Road. There is frontage on 3 streets. It's Rainbow Road, School Street, and Connecticut South Drive. So on this plan view here, north is roughly to plan right. It is a little hard to see, but along the very right-hand side, there's a street comes in diagonal. That's Rainbow Road. School Street is the far right side. It's a narrow strip that's hard to see. And then right at the very bottom of the sheet is Gateway Boulevard and Connecticut Drive South. As mentioned, the total lot area is approximately 130 acres. It's just a hair over. I think it's like 130.3 to be exact. Currently, the parcel is vacant, covered for the most part in wooded areas. There are the wetland resources along the east and west sides, which would be the Plan North and Plan South. There is also a clearing roughly in the center of the site. There are a few trails that cut through there, but it is an area that has extensive grasses that are starting to become more woody and infill over time. Specific to the wetlands, just a brief summary. Sheldon's Brook, along with the bordering vegetated wetlands around it, is located to the west, which is the Plan North. And then on the east, the Plan South, it's an unnamed brook. There are a couple sections that are more stagnant water vegetated, bordering vegetated wetlands, and there's a couple sections that are more water course with linear flow patterns. There is an existing crossing through that eastern wetland area. It is actually the location of our proposed northern driveway, which is the driveway coming in from the bottom of the sheet on the right-hand side. That driveway, as I mentioned, it is existing. There's an existing culvert system there. We are reusing that. We don't have to modify the width at all or the culvert. It's remaining as is. We're just improving on the embankment itself. There are a number of utilities crossing through the site. This site does have water mains cutting through it, as well as sanitary sewer. There is actually a pump station on the site just adjacent to the wetlands around Sheldon's Brook. And then lastly, regarding the water course, there are very limited amounts of flood zone on the site around Sheldon's Brook. They just clip into the site, approximately 50 feet at the maximum. Essentially, by the time you get to the edge of the delineated wetland, the floodplain more or less stops there. It does not creep into the site and up the hill. Specifically, as far as the proposed development, there's no impacts within the floodway. We're notably up gradient of the delineated flood zone. So from a proposed standpoint, there's a couple of commercial industrial buildings located on site, about 400,000, 300,000 square feet between the two. A variety of parking, loading, and circulation areas. Specific to wetlands, I did want to touch upon a couple of main points. The building, truck circulation, parking areas are all located well up gradient of that. As you can see on this color plan, we did want to provide a few different options here to make it easier to see. The darker green or bright green area, those are the wetland areas on site. I know it's hard to see on the screen. You may be able to see on the paper plan. The delineated wetland boundary is represented with a blue line with little triangles in it. So that is the delineated wetland bound. The pink lines represent the upland review area. And then looking more internal towards the site, the lighter green is all of the green space that will remain as a part of the project. It could be wooded areas, it could be lawn areas, or landscaped areas. The gray and the yellowish color, those are proposed paved areas. The yellow is concrete, gray is traditional asphalt. The brown is the building area. And then there's kind of like a bluish green in there. Those are our stormwater management basins for the proposed project. So as we kind of zero in and zoom in a little bit on the plan, I know it's a little hard to zoom in a bit, but the main point I wanted to emphasize here is that the heart of the development really is located completely outside of the upland review area. The notable work within upland review is primarily due to the 2 access drives. So that zooming in here on the plan, we can see there's the existing access drive, which is on the right half of the screen here. The work within upland review there is to improve that access point. Currently, it's a dirt gravel access road primarily to maintain the water and sewer infrastructure that actually runs right through that road currently. So we're looking to improve that, make it into a formal access road. So it'll have a little bit of grading to improve the drainage conditions, install the road network, and then there's some utilities that we'll be bringing in as well. Looking over at the southern drive, or the planned left drive, that is a new driveway for this development. For commercial developments in general, it's really, for an operational standpoint, it really is a hard requirement to have 2 driveway access points. We did look at this through our application through prudent and feasible alternatives. We explored a number of different options here, and where we have the driveway shown is the least impactful. Really, in order to have the function here, the driveway needs to come in off of Connecticut South Drive, primarily for a safety standpoint. All the vehicle traffic should be coming from this commercial area to keep it away from School Street. We really can't come in on Rainbow Road because it's already a congested area with the intersection right next door at the shopping plaza. There's not enough space to get in another driveway there. And certainly with the vehicle traffic on Route 20, it would be very, very difficult for the DOT to review and consider that as a viable option. So looking here at this driveway location, we do have a few different options of where it could go, but like I mentioned, where we placed it is the narrowest crossing point of the wetlands that we have access to. We did explore a couple options that should be in the application package. Essentially, looking farther plan right here, it's just a wider section of the wetlands. So for that driveway, we do propose a new box culvert. It's actually 2 barrels wide, so it provides adequate flow, but we also specifically chose a box culvert so that it promotes and allows for free passage of wildlife. We didn't want to go with a pipe system because those can be a little bit more restrictive for wildlife passage. So that's the main impact for the wetlands there. That's about 98% of the direct wetlands impacts. There's a very small sliver of wetlands impacts on the planned north side. It's associated with a velocity dissipation measure for outlet of one of our stormwater basins. We do have our outlet pipes are strategically placed so that we maintain flow towards the wetlands to maintain their current functions and values. But we did want to provide protection measures at the outlet so that we slow down the water so it's not flowing out rapidly, and allow any sediment to settle, as well as kind of level out the flow so it can convert into sheet flow. So we've got, I think it's around like 50 square feet of impacts on the planned north side just to fit in that velocity dissipation measure to protect that area. And then, as mentioned, we do have some enhancements. Specifically, they're focused around one of our proposed stormwater management basins. It's at the bend in that southern or planned left driveway. So there's kind of that bubble right on the inside corner of that driveway. That's a stormwater management basin specifically intended to manage the runoff from this driveway specifically. But we chose that area strategically for the wetlands enhancements because it is very close to the wetland resource area, but it also will experience repeated stormwater flow from the drainage system. So we were able to place strategic plantings in that area and select the varieties very carefully so that they are wetland friendly. It can essentially function as an extension of the wetland, but because it has that continuous flow from the stormwater management system, it will really increase the likelihood that this enhancement will be viable and sustainable long term. We didn't just want to plunk an enhancement kind of off to the side somewhere on the site near the wetland boundary. This area really does have that stormwater flow to maintain its viability long term. If we can zoom out a little bit for see the entire site, I want to touch on stormwater for the site as a whole. So this site does have 5 total stormwater management basins. Essentially, we're collecting all the runoff in deep sump and hooded catch basins. So the sumps and hoods will provide that initial treatment for suspended solids. It's all an underground conveyance system. So it'll flow through pipes into the infiltration basins. On the front end of those basins, we do have sediment forebays to provide another level of initial treatment for suspended solids. And then through the remainder of the basin will be the infiltration practice, as well as providing the remainder of the treatment in compliance with the Connecticut Stormwater Management Guidelines, the latest issuance, which is effective in 2024, that will provide the adequate pretreatment for suspended solids as well as nutrients such as phosphorus, nitrogen, and similar, so that by the time the water is infiltrated, it'll meet or exceed all the treatment requirements set by the state. Those basins are sized for all of the set design storms required by the town regulations, as well as the state of Connecticut stormwater guidelines. Essentially, that's all the critical design storms up to and including the 100-year. So the increments that we review are the 1 year, 2 year, 5, 10, 25, 50, and 100-year storms. And so essentially, the easiest comparison is that the 100-year storm is a probability of this storm happening once in 100 years. So for comparison, that's roughly 8.5 inches of rainfall in a 24-hour period. That's the 100-year storm. These basins are sized to accommodate and handle that water to a point where we do not discharge more stormwater from the site than what leaves today. In fact, we were able to work with the stormwater designs to have a net reduction to all of our design points surrounding the site. Some of those design points experience a reduction of between 10 and 15%. Others experience a reduction up to 50 to 60%. So through that practice of the full stormwater management system with the infiltration basins, we're really able to withhold a lot of water, force the vast majority of that water to soak into the soil naturally, recharge into the groundwater, and the byproduct of that is having less surface flow that goes into the wetland resource areas surrounding the site. Those are the 2 main design points, but there were 5 total. It's Sheldon's Brook and the bordering wetlands there. There's the wetlands to the east of the site, the unnamed brook. There's also, we analyzed independently 2 small vernal pools on site. One is within the wetland area on the east. One is located kind of in the middle of the site between the proposed driveway and the larger of the 2 buildings. And then we also independently analyzed the flow under the existing driveway at the culvert just to verify that the culvert is adequately sized. But like I mentioned, all of those key design points experience a net reduction in stormwater flow from all of the design storms, varying between 10% and 60%. We do have a site lighting system for the site. The vast majority of it is contained outside of the upland review areas. For the core portion of the site, there's no spillage into the wetland, and no spillage into the upland review area. We do have lighting along the driveway, so there will be some limited illumination within the wetland and the upland review area, but those lights are strategically placed and kept with shields and to as low height and foot candle as possible so that there's limited spill into the wetland, but we do still provide adequate lighting for traffic safety. We want to make sure it's a safe driveway for traffic circulation, especially that the southern driveway with that bend, we want to make sure that's illuminated so it's safe for all users of the site. We also included a comprehensive landscaping plan. From a wetland standpoint, it's centered primarily around that enhancement area. They are all native species, primarily a mix of shrubs within that area, all able to thrive within a wet foot condition as they would experience within that stormwater basin. There are a few trees scattered throughout that enhancement area as well, primarily river birch and swamp white oak. There are a number of other landscaping measures throughout the site. Just for order of magnitude, it's close to 300 trees, a mix of evergreens and shade trees. So we do have a number of other site improvements from a landscaping standpoint. With some of the disturbed areas within upland review that are not proposed to be landscaped or hardscaped will receive either a lawn seed mix if it's right next to the roadway or a conservation seed mix on the slopes and some of the bordering areas. Long-term, some of those open spaces and more grassy areas will be allowed to maintain some of that wildlife viability. We did specifically choose a conservation seed mix so that there is the variation in vegetation styles, some wildflowers in there to support wildlife habitat, especially as we get closer to the wetland area. So I believe with that, I would like to pass it over to Tiana to discuss some of the wetland resources.
All right, hello. My name is Tiana Perini. I'm the soil scientist with JMM Wetland Consulting Services here on behalf of the applicant. And tonight I'm going to discuss via the project Rainbow Road, some of the wetlands, their function and values, and our approach to minimizing impacts and also some mitigation. As discussed, there are two primary regulated resources, both sorry, the plan's going to be a little confusing for me, but like if it's actually facing north, it's going to be our eastern wetland, which is a forested wetland with an intermittent seasonal watercourse and a man-made pond, as well as our western wetland system, which includes Sheldon's Brook, associated emergent marsh and scrub shrub and forested wetlands. Within our eastern wetland system, we do have a noted vernal pool. Again, it is located within that water system. Then we have two isolated wetlands. One, a small man-made vernal pool in the southeastern portion of the site, and then an isolated wetland, not a vernal pool. It's an isolated depressional wetland in the southwestern portion of the site. When looking at our function and values, the western wetland does have 7 primary function and values. We do have a chart provided in our report. I'm not sure if everyone had that with them tonight.
That's a big one.
This was in the original packet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Want to go through, guys?
Sorry, I don't have it shared on the screen, but just to reiterate, it is in the chart, so you can see it listed. If you need me to go into it, I'm happy to go into it. But in the western wetland, we have 5 principal functions. The isolated wetland only has 1 principal function. These factors for the function values can be influenced in a positive way, such as the presence of multiple wetland types and the presence of the perennial watercourse, while other factors diminish the function, such as the approximate adjacent to the existing development, past disturbance, and an abundance of invasive plant species. When looking at the two vernal pools, we have the vernal pool 1, which is our natural vernal pool located within the wetland system. We did find that this was the more productive of the vernal pools with spotted salamanders and wood frogs. Vernal pool 2, which is the small isolated vernal pool that was noted more adjacent to one of the access drives. This is again a small man-made depressional wetland, which did support some wooded frogs and breeding, but is not considered a productive vernal pool at this time. And we did 2 different site visits, as well as trappings, and multiple hours spent there to conduct and come up with these answers for you guys. When looking at our impacts, we look at 2 different types of impacts, direct, as mentioned, and indirect. Our direct impacts are, again, only a small portion, and it's about 12,000 square feet with, and is associated primarily to one of the access drives. We do have, as mentioned, a mitigation plan that JMM is working on, and that includes native shrubs that will help restore some of the wetland areas and does at this time exceed the size of the proposed impact footprint. The indirect impacts are ones that are known to most sites: erosion and sediment, vegetation removal, hydraulic changes, water quality protection. With the plans that we have seen in place, with diligent supervision, there is only a moderate risk to erosion. Vegetation removal does include mostly invasive vegetation, and while still preserving existing buffers around the more sensitive resources, including over 300 feet away from our most valuable resource, which is the embedded vernal pool. With our mitigation plan, again, we will be looking at a 2-year monitoring, so we will have eyes on that, and we will be watching as it develops and be able to really make sure that it is enhancing. But as the proposed plan is so far, we do conclude that this project avoids impacts to the most ecological significant wetlands and vernal pools. All direct impacts are limited. Mitigation is present. Indirect impacts are controlled through engineering designs and management practices, and in our professional opinion, with our proposed development, we will not result in any significant short-term or long-term adverse impacts to the site's regulated resources. So thank you, and let me know if you have any questions.
So that concludes our presentation. I don't know if members of the commission have questions now. We're happy to answer them, or if you'd rather wait.
So one of the letters received from Robin regarding the questions that have been asked by the town engineer, I read through all the questions that have been asked of the engineering firm, and I saw the responses from the engineering firm as of June 25th. I got through about 3/4 of them, and it seemed that most of the questions, specifically in the drainage questions, said number 15, 16, 17, A through C, 19, and 20, all said they'd be addressed on the next revisions. Robin said we expect that those would be presented to us by the start of this public hearing.
So we actually just received today, and Tim step in at any point, but we received today a new memorandum from the town engineer. And as part of that memorandum, he proposes several conditions of approval, and I don't know if you have this in front of you, but I wanted to read the final.
No, the latest we had received was from June 30th.
Okay, so this is dated today, July 2nd.
So it came in, I think, just a few hours ago, so we obviously couldn't get out, but Tom Grimaldi, the town engineer, is on the call, so he's available and can go through to answer questions and walk through the most recent memo that he provided, which is the one that he's speaking to.
Okay, so we don't have those answers yet, so we need to hear those answers if we
Yes, I think the plan would be for you to get them verbally.
Yeah.
Because we couldn't get it out in
and
the packet.
if I could just read the final paragraph of his report, because I think that could be helpful, and then turn over to him. But in conclusion, the most critical comments have been addressed with regard to the drainage. The outstanding comments will have no adverse effect on the inland wetlands. The town requires a zero increase in runoff for all storm events from the 1-year to the 100-year storms. Together with this requirement and the proposed culvert replacement as proposed on School Street, we anticipate no adverse impacts on the downstream abutters and/or the inland wetlands. That's the town engineer's report from today.
Again, I just want to quickly add, so a few of those comments specifically that you're referring to are in relation to infiltration testing, test pits. We actually performed those last week. We weren't able to get those revisions done in time. We were out towards the end of last week. So just with the deadline to get plans back so that they can be submitted to you all for your packets for this evening's meeting, we weren't able to get that revision complete. However, the results largely confirmed testing that was previously performed about 2 years ago by GEI consultants. That report was in our stormwater management report. Essentially, the areas that we investigated were the two larger basins on the eastern side of the site and the smaller basin on the western side. So the two larger basins on the plan south and the one smaller basin on the plan north. The two basins on the plan south, the results we found were actually better than what GEI observed a couple of years ago. But we did proceed with the results from GEI out of a more conservative approach. So those basins we confirmed are viable and function as is. The smaller basin on the plan north, we did observe slightly higher groundwater than what GEI found previously. It was about a foot higher. However, where that basin is located and the design of it currently, we were able to just pick up the floor of that basin without any impacts to the upland review area or the wetland resource area as a whole. Basically, we had enough elevation to play with where we can just raise the floor slightly. The pond still holds the appropriate amount of water without increasing flows off-site.
So you don't have to change the dimensions even though you're making it more shallow?
Correct. We actually got better infiltration results.
Okay.
In that area. GEI wasn't able to reach that area previously because it was pretty wooded. We were able to go in there with an excavator and carefully pick our way through trees to create some space for testing, and we found a very nice pocket of sand. Previously, it was kind of like a sand and silt mix in some of the areas more on the north side, which is the plan right. As we go farther plan left, we get into more of like a sandy, gravelly mix, and where that basin is located, it's very firmly within that sand mix. We actually got field tested rates in excess of 10 inches per hour. So it's a very clean and suitable material.
So I'm not a soil engineer, but I understand geometry. And what you're saying is that you don't have to change the geometry, but the soil permeates better so you can get better drainage without having to change the footprint of it.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. We do have elevation to play with too, because the site is something like 15 feet higher than the floor of that basin. So we're able to pick that basin up as a whole if needed as well, without increasing the footprint extending out towards the wetlands. So because the site, essentially on this site, where we're putting the building is on kind of a knoll. The wetland resource areas are notably lower in elevation. We have something like 10 feet of grade change between the edge of the parking lot and the top of the basin. So we have the ability to slide that basin uphill towards the building, pulling it away from the wetland, and still achieve our target of bringing the floor of that basin up.
All right. I had another question related to the wetlands. Again, what the engineer was speaking, that the goal is to have a net zero change. And when you were speaking about the different, years and the successive storms, and, we can all imagine that we've had a lot more 100-year storms lately than we used to anymore. But you spoke that the design points were reducing the outflow from the current stuff. So
Correct.
That's not really net zero. You said like 10 to 60% reducing. So that could that have an impact on not feeding current existing wetlands that are outside of that? You understand what I'm asking? Like,
Yeah.
we're looking for net zero, right? So a reduction might seem like it's better, but if you're taking away water from other places that are supposed to be watered, how does that help?
So the regulations require no increase. We have to either match or reduce the rates. So as you can imagine, with a site of this development, it's very tricky to truly balance. Without getting into the details, a lot of the time what happens is we can get one or two of the design storms to match, but then the others are either a significant increase or decrease. So in order to get all of the design storms to comply with the match or reduction, most storms end up being a noticeable reduction. Here specifically, the approach that we took is, we have some larger wetland resource areas here, certainly not receiving flow just from this site. Sheldon's Brook has, a watershed in, tens of square miles, if not more. The wetland resource area on the eastern side of the site, we didn't analyze the full watershed of that, but certainly that's a sizable resource area as well. So with the net reductions that we're proposing, it's really negligible on the functions and values of those. I can give you order of magnitude in terms of like cubic feet per second that we're reducing, but we're not talking hundreds of cubic feet per second. It's more order of magnitude of like 20 cubic feet per second. So it's certainly lesser volumes of water. Some of the smaller resource areas, they may have higher percentages of reductions, but the comparison point here is the existing site to the proposed site. We're not analyzing the watershed as a whole. So although we're saying we're reducing up to 60%, it could be existing conditions has, only 20 cubic feet per second flowing in this one isolated pocket, but the larger watershed could have hundreds or thousands of cubic feet per second. So in the grand scheme of things, this reduction of water really should have minimal to no impact on the resource areas, especially as you look to some of the larger ones.
Anybody else have a question?
If I can point out, Commissioner Frank's online. Might want to just make sure she doesn't have any.
You want to check with Jennifer and see if she has anything to say?
She should be able to unmute if she does.
Okay, can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can.
I submitted some written comments, and my overall thought was if Tom is okay with it, we should be okay with it, which it appears that he is. I was concerned if he'd had enough time to review this second set of revised plans and the number of open items, but based on what was read tonight, it sounds like he is satisfied.
But we haven't seen them as a commission.
That's true.
I mean, and isn't our job as commissioners to make sure that the engineer and the public have a chance to review this information?
We could have used a little more time, definitely.
Yeah.
That's it for me.
Is the town engineer online? Maybe.
Yes. Do you want to see, Tom Grimaldi is online, the town engineer. Do you want to have him walk through quickly the memo just to take you through it? I know you don't have a physical copy, but do you want to have him walk you through it and go over kind of where he's at since he's here and available to you? Is that?
I mean, I would feel that this is not something that I'm prepared to make a vote on, not having had a chance to really look at this information in advance of this. I mean, if he's going to walk it through and not even have a paper copy in front of me, I don't.
You're under no obligation to make
All
a
right.
vote tonight.
All right,
But
I just-
since he's here, I think he should, as part of the public hearing, at least participate and say,
Sure.
this is what I look,
Sure,
you know. what I-
absolutely.
Yeah, you have no statutory obligation to issue a decision tonight. All right, so I'm gonna try to, I think Tom is there. Can you hear us, Tom?
Yes, I'm here.
I'm gonna stop sharing my screen so that people can see you.
Okay, great. So I completed a review a second review of the revised plans, which we received towards the end of last week. Completed that today. The conceptual and the real critical comments that I had for engineering have been addressed. That was items such as sediment forebays for pre-treatment, analyzing the pipes for the building, pipe sizing for all the pipes to make sure that the hydraulic gradients were achievable and not going to have water coming out of the catch basins. Everything, no bypass from the roof. Since it's a commercial roof, it's not considered clean water. So initially, if you look at your very first set of comments, you'll see that's in there. That was one of the critical ones. That's been addressed. So all of the pipes are now going into the storm drainage basins. All the basins are sized properly based on not only the pavement, but the roof areas. So all the impervious is accounted for in the 5 basins, and the flow is attenuated to meet what's there in pre-development. So they've done a good job with that. They meet it or exceed it. The fact that they got some good results on some of the new testing is great, because they were very conservative before. They didn't have any exfiltration out of the bottom of the basins. So a lot of that water, one of my concerns, and we're still going to discuss that in a couple other basins, is the draining of the basins if they're into compact glacial till, or if they have high groundwater, seasonal high groundwater areas. So Tim and I discussed that. There potentially could be require a bottom drain or groundwater intercepting drain in 1 or 2 of the basins. And the rest of my comments were pretty minor in nature. The last one that has to do with grading is I'd like to see some reverse bench slopes, reverse benches on the slopes where they exceed 15 vertical feet. So probably what Tim and I will do, we'll circle back, we'll make sure we'll have a conversation about my comments, since he just got these at 4:15 tonight. And then we'll get this worked out. And there's a few other things I'm requiring, not necessarily for wetlands, so I won't talk about those. And that's pretty much it.
Comments in favor?
From the
Go ahead.
public.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, from the public. Anybody from the public like to, right, if you can step up and just please state your name, your address for us, please, for the record.
Jeffrey Hecht, 8 Granger Circle. I appreciate you guys coming out and talking about what the design plans are, how you guys are addressing runoff. But one thing that wasn't addressed, and I know we don't know what the use is, but it's highly important when we think about wetlands, about if there is going to be tractor trailer use and the exhaust, because one, it is negatively impactful to the animals, but 2, it is also known to be hydroscopic. If it gets into the soil, it can actually deteriorate the runoff abilities of that land. And if it's already not the best runoff conditions, doesn't matter how much you engineer it, it can still negatively impact. It can make those 1 in 100 year floods even worse. But once again, the other piece is exhaust going into the air in the immediate vicinity, getting into the habitats, increasing nitrates, heavy metals. These are all things that have been well reported and big concern. I'm not concerned about necessarily disturbing the wetlands. I'm more concerned about what is going to be around the wetlands that could negatively impact it in the future. If we're talking about putting up a garage, that's one thing, but we're talking about warehouses where they're known to have tractor trailers running hours and hours at a time, releasing, their exhaust gases, everything else. So just consider that as you guys make your decisions, and make sure that the engineering plans do address those concerns. Thank you.
Any other comments?
My name is Larry Soretto, and I live in Sanford Ridge, which abuts the western boundary. And in particular, I think it's called Sheldon Brook. I never knew the name before now. And even though it's not specifically wetlands, in Sanford Ridge, we're already experiencing problems with runoff during storms and that was, all run by the town. And it's our neighborhood gets flooded. Not a lot, but we're concerned about the runoff and I know they're talking about, I don't know anything about engineering, but we're concerned about if anything is put into that Sheldon Brook, is it going to exacerbate our condition and make sure that the town, that it does not become our problem. That's my comments.
Jason Hayes, Washington Ridge. The duty of this commission is to vote on the proposal that's presented in front of you. If you don't have a completed, final proposal in front of you, it doesn't matter. Someone sent an email, we didn't get to it last week, we'll look at that, we'll address it. If you don't have the final proposal in front of you, you can't vote tonight.
Anybody else?
Amanda Lindberg, 32 Sanford Ridge. I am also very concerned about the runoff and the increase that might occur to Sanford Ridge and Schoolhouse Landing and Higley Village and the back ends of the high school. I'm hearing that there's going to be a 0% increase in the amount of water. What I'd be interested in hearing is, okay, that's the plan, but what if it doesn't happen? What will the town and what will Silverman do to change things? Because, in fact, there is more. So I think that's a question that the commission should ask for, some sort of contingency plan if things don't go according to the 0%. The other question that I would have, and perhaps you just haven't gotten to it yet, is this is the Northeast, and that curvy driveway going into the building, how is that going to be treated in the winter? You can't just salt it. It's going through a wetland. So I think I'd like to hear what the plans are for that. Thank you.
Any other comments? Come on.
Brian O'Connor, 41 Brighton. It just seems odd that you all are about to vote on something that you just learned as we're learning. I don't know how long you all have been doing it, but has it ever happened in the past where you get information like 20 minutes before you're asked to vote on it? That's all.
Anybody else? Staff, you have any comments?
You have a memo from Robin
Yeah.
as well, which runs through sort of her review and outlines the sort of standard conditions that you consider with all applications. I don't think there's anything additional. Her latest is the outstanding comments that were the subject of the revisions to the plans that have been discussed tonight. There weren't amendments necessary based on Robin's review, so there wasn't an updated memo that she needed to do. So I don't think there's anything additional on staff's side outside of what Tom walked you through. If there's no other, obviously we discussed it, and as you have two options. You can continue the public hearing to the next meeting. So if there's no one else here that wants to speak before you contemplate that, just want to check to see if anybody is online that wants to speak. There's a few people. So if anybody that's online that wants to participate in the public hearing, you should be able to unmute yourself.
Hello, this is Fran Nussbaum from Old Farms Lane. I do have a question in regards to the treatment of the driveways, the parking lot, the loading docks, and all of the runoff that goes from the winter treatment of whatever is put down and that goes into the drainage basins. Is that something that is considered solids, liquids? What is going to be absorbed into the waterways and the basins? Chemicals? Question.
Anybody else online?
Nobody else? The applicant? The applicant want to respond back?
Sure. So again, for the record, Evan Seaman on behalf of the applicant. So just responding to some of the comments. Many of these comments are relevant to planning and zoning. The use, exhaust impacts to air quality is not within the jurisdiction of this agency. You need a final proposal. This is a final proposal. This plan was submitted to the commission before the June 4th hearing when you received it. It's been revised since then. It's been reviewed by town staff, the town engineer, the town, Robin Newton, the town planner, and economic development director. In terms of the comment about a concern, well, what if something happens to the drainage, particularly with respect to Sanford Ridge? Well, this agency has jurisdiction at any time. If plans don't work as they're contemplated to work, that has to be addressed. And that's, we don't believe that's going to happen. That's, that we're speculating about what could happen in the future. But if something were to go awry, this agency can address that at the appropriate time. Again, with respect to the drainage issues, the town engineer, I know you just heard from him now, and you may not have seen his memorandum or his staff report, but he did conclude that there is going to be no adverse impact with respect to drainage on the abutting residential owners. So that's, we thank the commission for its time. We're happy to answer any more questions if based on the comments you have further questions, but based on the evidence in the record from the town planner, Robin Newton, from the town engineer, from our professional consultants, we believe we meet or exceed section 10.2 of your regulations, which are the criteria for decision. In the memoranda, I should note too, from Robin and the town engineer, there are proposed conditions of approval that each suggest, and we reviewed them, and we agree to all of those conditions of approval if the commission is inclined to vote and consider them. So with that, we thank the commission for its time, and unless there are any other questions, that concludes our presentation.
Sorry, can I make one clarifying remark? The exhaust, because it wasn't addressed and it was swept under the rug. He had said that planning and zoning is in charge of exhaust, not inland wetlands. My comment was exhaust precipitates very quickly around idling trucks and could have a negative impact to not only the soil composition, but also runoff. Water absorption is negatively impacted by high levels of diesel exhaust. It gets absorbed into the soil and it prevents the absorption. I didn't see any address of that in the plan because we don't know what the use is for, but it should be considered because it's highly probable that it's going to be a warehouse with a lot of tractor trailers. So it has nothing to do with air pollution. It 100% has to do with soil pollution and water runoff impacts.
Again, the use is a planning and zoning issue. The use is not something within the purview of this agency. Town staff, the town planner issued a memo that wasn't raised as a comment. The town engineer reviewed the plans and issued his comments. That wasn't raised as a comment or concern. And that's because it's a planning and zoning issue. It's not an issue for this agency. The comments were, I'll leave it at that.
Could I ask one more question for the planning engineer? A lot of the questions that some of the people of the public were concerned about, I would imagine you have the answers to, and I imagine that all those calculations about the runoff, like all the treatment systems are designed to treat whatever's going, but I feel that there's some interest in understanding, is that an appropriate thing for them to explain how the water treatment systems are designed to treat runoff from surfaces or surface treatments?
Yeah, I mean, I think they can certainly speak to the function of the infrastructure that they're putting in the ground, and if something were to get into them from whatever it is.
Right.
Yeah, I think that they can certainly speak to that. And you want to?
I would just to give them an opportunity to respond to some concerns that people had while they were here. It seems fair to be done in this venue.
Sure. So again, Tim Hool from BL Companies for the record. So this site, we are designed to comply with the latest issuance of the Connecticut Stormwater Guidelines, last updated. I think the effective date was March 31st of 24. So it's a pretty recent revision. In those regulations, there are requirements for a variety of levels of treatment for stormwater, centered around a variety of different potential pollutants, whether it be suspended solids, trash, sand, gravel, things of that nature, all the way through metals, nutrients like phosphorus, nitrogen, and similar. Essentially, if you boil down through those regulations, what is found to be the best means of treatment is pre-treatment through hard engineered practices like capture and catch basins with deep sumps and hoods to separate out some of the hydrocarbons and solids, allow them to settle out, flow into more green measures. The initiatives that the state of Connecticut has implemented focus around low impact development, meaning more green features, more surface features for stormwater to flow into or over grassed or vegetated spaces for the vegetation and the soil materials themselves to provide that treatment. Vegetation and soils in these specifically designed measures are very effective at treating for pollutants, especially some of the more challenging ones like phosphorus, nitrates, and some of the metals. In these areas, the vegetation and soils do capture and really isolate those contaminants. For our site specifically, we have located all of those stormwater measures as far outside of the even the upland review area as possible. If Mike, if you want to go back to the plan quickly, if we can. Out of our stormwater management basins that we have, the majority of them are entirely outside of the upland review area. So any of this runoff that does have some of these potential pollutants, you know, it'll go through the pre-treatment, through the hard infrastructure, if you will, the catch basins, the pipes, and similar. But then as it flows into the basins, it'll have another level of treatment in the sediment forebays, which are a small portion within the basin itself, and then the active infiltration through the basins. That main level of treatment is almost entirely outside of the upland review area. The 4 largest basins on site are entirely outside of upland review, so there is a large separation between where that treatment is happening and the critical resource areas. Basin 5 is the one exception to that. About half of it is in the upland review area. As a reminder, that's the small basin near the proposed driveway. That one does have a specific advantage in comparison to the other 4 in that we are proposing a substantial improvement in vegetation around it. So although that is a little closer to the wetland resource area, there's far more vegetation being proposed within and around that basin that'll drastically improve the treatment levels achieved for some of the more problematic items to treat for, such as the nutrients and metals.
Hey, Tim?
Yes.
Tom Grimaldi. Can you just give him a brief explanation on the water quality volume and how that's addressed in the sediment forebase? That would help a little bit for them to understand the treatment per the 2022 Stormwater Quality Manual, which I will say is an extremely rigorous requirement with the latest revision. It's gotten much more difficult to design these basins. They're larger. They require more testing in the field and not in the lab. So if you could just give them a brief overview of the water quality volume and how that's addressed, that'd be great.
Sure. So as Tom mentioned, there's in the manual, there's a handful of major design criteria that we need to consider. One of the main ones that we already touched upon was ensuring that we, the technical term is attenuate the peak flow rates, essentially verifying that we're not sending more water off-site. That's one of the main measures. One of the other ones that, as Tom is talking about, is the water quality volume. There's a set guideline on how to calculate what this volume is, but essentially, the calculation is centered around ensuring that we account for all of the impervious areas on the site and that we are capturing that water and treating it. The science behind it is that when a storm happens, the paved areas may have some level of pollutants on it, whether it's buildup of sand and sediment. It could be a little bit of hydrocarbons from a small fuel spill or something similar. As the rain happens, those contaminants are concentrated and flushed in what's called the first flush. That's every state is a little different in what they consider, but the water quality volume in Connecticut is calculated to assume 1.3 inches of rain over all of the impervious areas on site. So essentially what we're required to size the treatment devices for is assuming 1.3 inches of rain hits all of the impervious areas on site. We need to capture that, have it flow through all of our treatment practices, and specific to the sediment forebays, they need to handle a set percentage of that. It's the state standards are between 10 and 25%. So those sediment forebays can hold between 10 and 25% of that set volume at any given moment. Now, as the storms progress and develop, we don't get all 1.3 inches within, a 1 minute span. So certainly there's a duration there that the forebay will hold a large volume of water, but it's not all hitting in one exact moment. But with this site, the water quality volume is a core component. We did provide those calculations. Tom has reviewed those, and I believe we are in good shape on those. The other component to water quality volume that gets linked in, it's a little bit of an overlapping definition in the Connecticut regulations, but essentially there's a large portion of the water quality volume that must be infiltrated as well. Here we had something like the requirement was around, I think, 160,000 cubic feet of water must be infiltrated in order to comply with the infiltration component of water quality volume. We are drastically increasing that. Order of magnitude, we're up around 280,000 cubic feet that is going to be infiltrated. So it's a large net increase in the amount of water that we are infiltrating on the core of the site. Again, as a result of those water quality calculations and really retaining that water within our stormwater basins outside of that upland review area.
Go ahead, you want to speak?
Sure. I got a couple of questions. First one is regarding, you're talking about 1.3 inches of rain.
State your first name for us, please.
My name is Bill Hearn, Whining Hills. You said 1.3 inches of rain, is that correct? Over what period of time?
So there's no set time constraint, but all of the storms that we analyzed in the Northeast are for a 24-hour duration.
So you're assuming 1.3 inches of rain over 24 hours?
So that's, the storm duration is up to 24 hours. However, it's calculated on a set volume. So essentially when we do the calculation, it's just surface area times 1.3 inches. That gives us our volume. That's what we need to manage. There really is, when we factor in that water quality volume, time does not really come into that calculation at all.
Okay, but time is a very important component here because you get up 1.3 inches over 15 minutes.
So,
you could have, excuse me, I'm speaking, sir.
Yeah.
Excuse me, if I could interrupt.
Speaking.
Excuse me, sir. If I can interrupt. It's not supposed to be a dialogue back and forth where it's question and answer. It's supposed to be public comment. So do you want to make a comment regarding?
Okay, I have a public comment. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Dealt with you before, yep. Is it typical, my public comment is it typical that we have someone here who is an interested party who clearly has a conflict of interest to be advising our town board, any town board, about anything? This man is standing up and telling you guys what to do. And you guys aren't saying boo about that. So I got a problem with that. I have a problem with his attitude. I have a problem with the fact that you guys are not responding to that when he's telling you what your job is. You guys should know what your job is, and you should be responding to him in some way that tells him that. So that's a significant concern to me. Above and beyond that, what I'm hearing is that there's no provision for treating polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons, which are some of the most cancerous substances in the world. They're going to be coming off of any internal combustion vehicle, contaminating the soil, and running off. Additionally, we're hearing that 1.3 inches of rain over 24 hours is their standard, which is absurd. Look at the runoff, the precipitation from any storm in a thunderstorm in the summer, and you're going to see a heck of a lot more than 1.3 inches of rain over 24 hours, over and over and over again. So that's an absurd standard. Whether it's state law or not, it's not reasonable. Those are my comments.
You mind if I talk about that?
Are you asking me or the commission?
No, I'm just talking to the commission. So basically, I can answer that question. The 1.3 inches of rain is only for the water quality volume. The actual design of the detention basins is to attenuate the 100-year storm event, which is a rainfall intensity of 8.2 inches per hour for a 24-hour period. So there's two different things. I just wanted to make sure that the gentleman wasn't confused. When I asked Tim to talk about the water quality volume, it was addressing Ms. Nussbaum's question, which was about water quality treatment of the water. Beyond that, this is designed to attenuate the 100-year storm event, which is over 8 inches of water in an hour. So just bear that in mind. This is a massive storm drainage system. Thank you.
Gentleman wants to. We have another.
Thank you, Garber. Cedar Bridge.
Can you come up and speak up here, please, so we can hear you?
Bring the microphone.
Walk up here.
I can't hear him back there.
Bring the microphone.
I don't know that the range is long.
My question is specifically in regard to the catch basins. I understand that on day one, they'll be doing their job and they'll be doing them great. What happens on a longer period of time? Who's responsible for the upkeep of them? And what, if anything, is being done to monitor what comes out of those catch basins over a period of years? Thank you.
As a part of our application and also as a part of the Connecticut Stormwater Management Guidelines, we are required to submit a long-term operation and maintenance plan for the entire stormwater management system, including the catch basins, but it also includes some other measures, including things like street sweeping, observing the conditions in the sediment forebay and the infiltration basin for accumulated sediments or erosion and repairing those. That was included in our original application. It's in the stormwater management report. It's usually, I believe it's the last appendix that we have in there. But in there, it talks through the functions of all of these measures, how they're impacted by accumulation of debris and sediment, and also measures for maintaining these, as well as a set schedule of when to inspect and maintain these various devices. So it is a core component of the stormwater management system to be maintained and operated by the landowner long-term. And certainly through construction, there's a number of implemented measures as well. But that treatment and long-term maintenance is a core component that is included in the application.
Anybody else?
We keep hearing people ask questions and we're not getting answers about truck contamination. I want to point out to the board that we're not talking about a few trucks. This is a cross-docking facility. So we're looking at the ability to sit 140 18-wheelers at one time at this facility in one shift. That's a serious question to be asked, and it's a question that should be answered.
Understanding that in hearing, you don't actually have to answer questions. So I think there's a misunderstanding.
No, it's a public comment period. If the applicant chooses to respond to those comments, they can.
Can I point out that in a hearing, the public makes comments, they can ask questions, but we don't answer them. There's not dialogue, as it was previously mentioned. So your comment about us not responding to the applicant's comments, we know what our job is.
Well, since you're speaking to me directly, I will respond. You're not just not responding.
No.
You're sitting there mute, and what we're hearing is you're being given advice by a commercial entity.
We're generally supposed to be mute right now. When we have
our information.
When we have our actual meeting and debate the merits.
Is that an open meeting or a closed meeting?
It's open right now.
It's a public meeting.
Right. Well,
after they close public comment.
After we close public comment.
Right.
Okay, that's when we'll decide.
Yeah, I understand
Is that meeting an open meeting or a closed meeting?
No, the
open meeting.
When the hearing is closed, that's when we stop taking public comments. We have our meeting, which is no longer a hearing, in which public can sit quietly but not comment or ask questions. Is that right?
That's correct.
Now, does anybody else have anything else? Please step forward.
Cat Lindy, Sanford Ridge. I have a stupid question here. We're talking about these catch basins and things like that. 100% of the water isn't going to land on the driveways and the concrete and on the roof. It's going to land on all the surrounding area also. The grass that you're going to put in, the trees, the lawn I heard about. That's not going to end up in the catch basins, if that's my understanding. That's going to flow into the wetlands, correct? Is every single drop of water that lands on this entire building facility going to end up in a catch basin so that it can be treated before it ends up in the wetlands. And my one other comment is, you're kind of poo-pooing Sanford Ridge. I can see the water, some of our storms, maybe 15 feet from my backyard right now. And you're talking about 100-year storms? We're in climate change here. We're looking at 200-year storms. Some places in this country have seen 10 inches of rain an hour for a day. And we know how that ended up with floods and things like that. So a 100-year storm, they're not happening every 100 years. They're happening quite often now. So that's my comment. And I don't know if anybody can address it, but all that water isn't going to land in the catch basins. So all the pollutants are not going to land in the catch basins. They're going to end up in our groundwater and in our wetlands. Thank you.
Could I just make a couple of concluding remarks? Absolutely. So again, for the record, Evan Seaman, Robinson & Cole, on behalf of the applicant. Thank you again for your time. Again, 130-acre site, 0.22% of that site is going to experience direct impact to wetlands. 2% of that site, the activity will be in the upland review area. The vast majority of the site, it's been designed, the project has been designed to avoid impacts to wetlands and wetlands resources. The town engineer has, you've heard from him tonight, he's issued a staff memorandum, one of which was from today, in which he concluded that there would be no adverse impact with respect to runoff to the Sanford residents. Robin Newton issued her staff memorandum, and there was a statement in it to the effect that the applicant has done a very good job complying with the requirements of 10.2 of your regulations, the criteria for decision. We agree with that. We believe we've met or exceeded each of your criteria for decision under 10.2 of your regulations. We respectfully request that you close the public hearing. We respectfully request that you approve our application subject to the conditions of approval that have been recommended by your town engineer and by Ms. Newton. So unless the commission has any further questions, that concludes our presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. You want to continue it till next month?
I want to read the
Keep open the public comment till next month.
I mean, in the experience that I've had on this board in 4 years, we've had a number of situations where we've had a list of questions from the engineer, and they've been continued. And I've never been in a situation where information is coming the day of and we haven't had it printed. So just as we've been discussed before, to make sure that we're treating all applications in the same manner, it wouldn't seem appropriate to me to close the public hearing at this time, given that we have not seen a printed copy.
I make a motion to continue it till August.
I would second that motion.
To the August meeting, the regular August meeting?
Yes, regular August meeting, correct.
So to clarify, we're going to continue the hearing.
That's correct. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
more public comment then.
That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah. So we have time to review the remaining documents that we haven't got.
Will we have any discussion this evening after the hearing is continued?
No, if you're going to continue the public hearing, continue the public hearing, no more discussion on it
That's it.
tonight.
Okay.
It's all done now as of right now, and then we'll continue it next month.
So you made the motion? Who's someone second the motion?
Discussion.
Yes, pretty broad motion. Motion discussed. Aye.
In favor of continuing?
Yeah, in favor.
Yes,
Yeah,
in favor.
Favor continuing till August.
Yes.
Jennifer?
Jennifer?
Baker's in favor.
Jennifer.
For the record, Jeff.
In favor of continuing.
Move on to the next item here.
Next item here for the minutes. Fourth minute. You'll make it a motion to change the date.
I would second that motion to change the date.
Okay. Communication communications.
No, let's, gotta make the motion, go on the motion.
I would move to approve the minutes with the correction of the date on the top of the minutes to reflect the accurate date of June 7th. Still on.
Excuse me. Oh, they're still having a meeting, so if you guys want to have side conversations, that's fine, but they're still continuing their meeting.
The hearing is closed per se, but we have other business unrelated to that issue to discuss.
Thank you.
Thank you for your input.
Wait, did we get our vote?
Did you vote on the minutes?
Yeah, on the minutes from last time.
I think it was right.
The new material will go on the website with all the other material?
It'll be Monday. Yes, Michelle will be back on Monday, and these items will be posted online. Yep.
Thank you.
Just make sure the vote's clear for the record of the minutes.
Right, that's what,
Yeah, I thought we had.
because they might not be able to hear it. Well, so are we redoing the?
Yeah,
So
we're gonna redo the vote.
I proposed with the correction of the date on the minutes from the last meeting, corrected to have the correct date of June 7th. We approve the minutes as.
June 4th.
Was it June 4th?
Yes, June 4th, yep.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, June.
Right, you're right. Okay, so I amend my proposal to fix the minutes. June 4th.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Ever?
Yes.
Okay.
All of them.
All in favor? Yeah. Communications.
That's the Sanford Bridge, isn't it?
Yeah.
Or is that considered part of the public hearing?
That'd be part of the public hearing.
It's not a separate communication.
That's tabled.
Okay.
Public hearing.
We got old business. Really nothing new in old business. Reports and other business. The business is 5058 Rainbow Road LLC. Construction of the warehouse, building, associated improvements, the upland review area, and 2 access driveways. Which
Continued.
yeah, it's continued till August. And all adjourned. Done.
Motion for
Yeah,
adjournment?
make a motion to adjourn.
I move we adjourn.
Second.
Second?
All in favor?
All in favor?
Sure, you had to pass that together.